Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the Gnarly Gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft, and I think I can officially say it now. We are at one of Cincinnati's newer breweries, because there is a brewery. In fact, I came in last week, and it smelled like they were making beer, because they were. Yep. It's good to finally hear that, to see it, to smell it, to kind of get some kind of connection to the brewery, because for a very long time we didn't have that here at Gilligan's Brewery. Now, it took a long time to get the brewing operations up and running here. We'll talk about it all. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
What is your official role here at Gilligan's?
So I primarily work as the marketing manager, but I also help out in other things like, just training people on the beer. And by people, I mean both our own bartenders and the guest itself. So people who don't really know a lot about craft beer coming in, just asking, what's your closest thing to this, and what makes an IPA an IPA, and lager, stuff like that.
I would go a step further, that even if people do know about craft beer, like sometimes you walk in and you got a question about something. There's, I'm drinking, which we'll talk about what I'm drinking in a second. I'm drinking Lady Grey, which is a beer made with Earl Grey tea. Like I walk in and I see Lady Grey, I'm going to have questions like, well, what is that? Is that what it, in my head I think it's going to be, or, what can I expect?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different styles of craft beer that a lot of people don't know about. So that's one of the fun things about having 30 different beers on tap. Is we have a wide variety of stuff that you might not normally have heard of or even know what it is.
Here's the problem with a lot of brew pubs. You walk in and you sit down and you get a waiter or waitress that comes over and takes your order, or somebody helps you when you go up to the bar or something like that. And if you have a question about the beer, I would say now, in today's craft beer landscape, I'm going to say 3/4 of the time they have no idea. They don't know anything about the beer. They're like, I think it's an IPA. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, there's a lot to learn.
And I get it. But when you walk into a place that makes beer, you expect somebody to know about the beer. And I am thrilled that you guys have taken over operations here, because I know you guys will do a great job of that. That's where we should start, I guess.
Yeah.
No, we should start with the beer first. I should drink this. My favorite segment of the show, from the beer fridge. Like I mentioned, Lady Grey. What can you tell me about the beer?
Yeah, so it's going to be a very easy drinking beer. It's a golden ale that's, like you said, made with Earl Grey tea. It's going to be in the mid 3%. So it's a great beer to, that have multiple pints of, and really get to enjoy the flavor of what it has to offer. It's pretty simple. Not a whole lot going on with it, but you get not overwhelming flavor, but nice flavor for it.
Well, and that's, to me, when I think of pubs, be it an Irish pub or an English pub or anything, one of the things that I'm looking for is beer that's lighter, easier to drink, not necessarily lighter, lower ABV, easier to drink. You can session, you can drink a bunch of them, just kind of hang out. But that still has flavor. That's, English styles are some of my favorite styles because of that the malt flavor that you can get out of a beer that's still kind of relatively low ABV. And so this one kind of fits into that box that I'm looking for in a pub, something that I can kind of knock back a few of and then still get home.
And it's been like one of our staff favorites. So, kind of mentioning knowing about beer and stuff like that, we get a lot of, what do you recommend? What's a certain style that I kind of give you an idea of, but just a whole style of beer. And that's been something every bartender goes, you need to try this beer. Yeah. And when, bartenders can stand behind it, then the guests stand behind it, and then they're going to tell everybody else about it.
Even if a bartender tries it and doesn't like it, they know what it is. They can guide somebody towards it if that's what somebody's looking for, or away from it if somebody's like, man, I really hate tea.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably not going to like this beer.
If you don't like the, you might not like the style.
Maybe.
You might not like the style, but you can appreciate what it is, of knowing the style of beer and knowing that it's done exceptionally well.
Right. What are you drinking? I'm going to guess this looks like a dry Irish stout to me.
Yeah. So it's a dry Irish stout. It's actually on Nitro out here, as well as at Westside Brewing.
Of course it is.
So we like to, try to get as true to some of those Irish styles. And when you think of an Irish beer, I mean, everybody's going to go straight to Guinness, right? So it's very comparable, very similar. And on Nitro, to me, you just can never beat that.
Great beer. It is a lot like Guinness, just has more flavor than Guinness does. I enjoy Guinness every once in a while, but that is one of my gripes, is that it's just so light and in flavor that like sometimes I'm like, man, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm wanting something else that kind of is a little fuller and bigger, and that beer fits that for me perfectly.
Definitely.
I'm gonna guess we're gonna call that a flagship here.
Yes, it'll be year round out here for sure. And then Westside Brewing actually just put a nitro tap in, so it's going to be on there the majority of the time. But we do have a second nitro tap at Gilligan's Brewery, where we're going to kind of switch through some different things. So we started off with the red ale. Now we're on a Scottish export nitro.
The pub ale would be awesome on
I
nitro.
would agree. Yeah.
I'm going to push for that one.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and start with that. You mentioned Westside Brewery. This is a spinoff of the Westside brand.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about how that came about and what that means kind of for the two different sides of what this is.
So we kind of started Gilligan's Brewery when Gilligan's on the Green first started. We did a partnership with EP Investment Group of kind of doing the beer, an Irish English style beer for Gilligan's on the Green. So we started just kind of cranking them out, and we're like, let's just make a line and call it Gilligan's Brewery. So it honestly, I think, started with the extra stout, where we called it Gilligan's Extra Stout, and that's where we kept the name Gilligan's Brewery, and eventually it just kept going. So we've been brewing as Gilligan's Brewery at Westside for over a year now, probably a little bit longer, and then was really trying to get out here a lot earlier, but all that didn't happen.
It never happens when you think it's close.
Getting all the permits in and, crossing your T's, dotting your I's took some time, and we actually were officially brewing on site in December of 24.
And then you guys took over full operations here at the beginning of February.
Yeah,
is
February
that right?
1st.
So not that long ago.
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
Well, I mean, the bones were in place. You guys have been here selling beer for when did
Gilligan's on the Green opened November of 23, I want to say.
Okay, that sounds right. So you guys had been selling beer here. You've been kind of laying the foundation.
Yeah.
People knew that you were here. The building was ready to go. The brew house was here and ready to go for when you were able to get started. So it was a little easier to kind of make that switch.
Definitely.
Now it just becomes a little bit of a process of evolution with some things and kind of changing some of the processes and the experience of what it means to be here. Let's talk about the Gilligan's brand a little bit. The way this all kind of came together, I think, is so perfect. You mentioned that the dry Irish stout was always called Gilligan's. Then you've got the German Irish lager, which just happens to be called Gill.
Just that abbreviation
some kind of weird coincidence. Yeah. How did this idea for Gilligan's come about? I know Joe, you said, was going to try to stop by.
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and we'll dive into it now, just in case.
So the whole Gilligan's name comes from Martin Gilligan, who immigrated from Ireland to the United States, specifically Cincinnati. And he was the head gardener for Moreline for a long time. And then, the story goes, he always just wished he had those Irish beers still. And he, Martin Gilligan Sr., unfortunately wasn't able to do that. But in the family, a couple generations later, Joe Mumper, owner of Westside Brewing and Gilligan's Brewery, was his great nephew, I believe, actually started doing that with the beginning of Westside Brewing. So German Irish Lager was kind of the introductory to us getting into some Irish beers. We're taking the best of two great beer historic countries and just combining them together. With that success of Gill, we started branching out more into two separate lines of our Bavarian-focused beers like Oktoberfest, Helles, Fest beer, but then also focusing on Irish beers. So our Irish lager is going to be similar to a Harp clone, Irish Red, something like a Killian's. So we were able to focus on that. And then as, Gilligan's on the Green first started, we kind of put a higher emphasis on, let's get these done, let's do them not just done, but do them well for people to enjoy.
Well, they're great beer styles. I mean, people right now, more than any time that I can remember, people are craving, like we talked about before, something that's just drinkable beer, something they can just sit down
Yeah.
and just drink. The other stuff is fun, and there's plenty of breweries that are making, Lucky Charms stout or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's fine, and I'm not dogging people that like that type of beer, but that's not what I crave. It's not what I'm looking for when I'm looking to grab a pint. And I think that there's a lot of people that are kind of leaning into those styles right now. So the timing's
for
just
sure.
perfect with it. And you guys do it so well
I
at
think
Westside and here.
I think some, craft beer fans there was an overabundance of, like those crazy beers that kind of come through, that there's so much going on with each one that, they were great beers, don't get me wrong, but it was just so much that we kind of, as a craft beer industry, I feel like are gravitating back to like those classic styles.
Do you think that it is something that's happening kind of across all sides of beer drinkers, that some of the people that were drinking it are kind of leaning away from it, or are more people just kind of coming out and being like, I wasn't even drinking craft beer before because I don't care about Lucky Charms beer. Now I'm seeing stuff that I can drink. Like, what's the state of the industry right now as far as drinkers in your mind?
For a variety of reasons, people are drinking. And
my kids make me drink.
Yeah,
that's my reason.
That's a good one. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a combination of both of, some people, like at Westside Brewing specifically, we do a lot of private parties where, just because it's, the uncle's birthday, everybody else might not drink craft beer. So they're coming up to the bar asking for something light, something like a domestic. And then we'll give them multiple options. And it's always fun watching them go like, oh, there's actually other stuff besides those crazy beers. And that I actually like this, and this is good. I want to get more of it. And a little bit of people leaning out of the wild stuff.
I know that I've probably mentioned it on the show before, but one of the things that I miss the most about the craft beer experience was those times where you'll be sitting at a bar. Somebody would walk up to the bar, maybe they're with a group, or they just kind of walked in off the street or whatever, maybe like, I don't really like craft beer, I'm a Bud Light drinker, like, what do you have that I like? And it's like, well, we don't really have Bud Light, but try this, and 3 or 4 beers, you give them a little taste of it, and and then you see that moment where there's something that connects with them. They're like, okay, yeah, this isn't Bud Light, but I kind of like this. And they have a pint of it, and they come back like, that was good, I want another one. And then, the next week you see them sitting at the bar drinking it because they have now fallen in love with it. Like, I feel like we don't get to see that as much anymore, whether because people have, gotten exposed to craft beer and know what it is, or a lot of craft breweries just don't care anymore.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see sometimes of them not trying, or, you try a beer a couple of years later after you visited a brewery, and you're like, I remember this beer was so good, and then you get it again, and you're like, what happened?
Right.
So it's kind of hard to see with how many breweries are in Cincinnati, to be honest.
Right.
And
it's difficult, but it also does kind of give us that everybody's been exposed to craft beer, which is a good thing. Everybody's got a brewery that's in their neighborhood that they can get to. Not everybody. I get there's still lots of neighborhoods that need breweries. Don't send me emails. I understand. There's a brewery that's close by to you that can become your spot. So it's become like more normal, but then you lose some of those magic moments because it's just normal now.
Well, there are still those magic moments. People saying that they want to try something different, but they'll give me a hard, I don't drink anything over 60 IBUs, or I don't drink IPAs. It's like, well, I have one that's not an IPA, for example, but it gets hop flavor, but not hoppiness, not the bitterness. Like, give that a try. And they're like, wow, like, there's other stuff I can drink. So you still have those moments.
Sure.
And it's easy when you have such a wide variety of product.
Do you think craft beer is still going somewhere that is exciting, or do you think it is just kind of leveling out and becoming, I don't want to say boring, but normal, I think is the...
Yeah, there's still breweries popping up, so there's still excitement for all that. When it comes to beer, there's a whole lot you can do with it. So, in Cincinnati, I feel like IPAs just became popular, 10-ish years ago. Mm-hmm. So there's probably going to be another style that kind of is going to take over and bring some more excitement back to it. And a lot of the excitement when it comes to beer is, the people that you're with, what you're experiencing, whether it's just sitting on the back deck on, at night, or if you're going to, a taproom event that's fun, like live music, stuff like that.
Right.
So you have that still keeps like the excitement going in everything.
Let's talk about kind of the personality of Gilligan's versus West Side. Like, what are the similarities that you guys have found between the two different locations? What are some of the things that are different? What can people expect when they're, a diehard West Side drinker and they find themselves over here in Wyoming? Like, I want to grab a beer somewhere. Oh, we should go check out Gilligan's. Like, what can they expect from this versus that, and vice versa?
So the Gilligan's Brewery line is very similar in terms of how we want to do it to the West Side Brewing line. West Side Brewing's motto is traditional beer brewed exceptionally well. We don't do anything super crazy. If you want a Hefeweizen, that's what it is. It's a Hefeweizen.
You made a Geta beer. I mean, you do some things that are a little bit.
We do a little bit. Same with some of the smoked beers, but overall, we're not really going too far outside of a norm.
Right.
And Gilligan's Brewery is going to be the same.
Traditional Geta beer.
Yes, traditional. Hey, that's Cincinnati, right?
that is definitely
You can't get much more traditional than Geta in Cincinnati. But the Gilligan's Brewery brand is going to still be very traditional, but more focused on, the Irish style, English, Scottish, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So you're going to find a lot of similarities in terms of something like that. In terms of taproom, we have had a lot of success at West Side Brewing in Westwood, and we want to kind of recreate that out here. We want this to be everybody's like go-to spot, whether it's for after work beer, event, party, dinner, whatever like that. But we also know Westwood and Wyoming are different.
Right.
We can't copy and paste what we did to make West Side Brewing what it is out here. So we're pretty new into the operations out here of feeling everything out. So we've been talking with a lot of people in the community of, what would make this place special for you,
right,
and how are we able to execute that?
I feel like there's a lot of breweries that when they open up a second location, they try to copy and paste. Like our other tap room's doing great. It's turned into this over the years. Here's what it is now. Let's do that over here, and they just try to open up in an identical spot somewhere else, and instead of kind of understanding the neighborhood and what people are looking for in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have a really great opportunity here it's working the way it is, but if you can kind of take a breath for a minute and kind of just pay attention to what people are asking to change about it, then you can let this kind of evolve into its own thing that has similarities to to the original location, but has its own thing that
it makes
that
it special to the
here.
Community,
right?
Like West Side Brewing, it's hard to say, but we pretty much guess that majority of our clientele are regulars. Like,
right,
this is where they go to have a beer after work and all that, and they have a connection to that as they've seen the changes that have happened over the years, and the suggestions that they kind of maybe lightly made or maybe not lightly made, mm-hmm, and seeing that they have that feel of, this is my brewery. This is completely off topic and a different rabbit hole we can go down, but how many breweries do you think that's true with here in Cincinnati, that like the majority of their people are their people, this is their spot, they go here, and there aren't really and maybe they are going other places too, but they're regulars, versus places that it's people kind of stop by when they're in the area or whatever. But I feel like there's quite a bit. Something like I think the more community-based ones that are in community or residential area, right, they have that. Now, when you get to some of the bigger ones that kind of go across multiple things, that you might not have as many. But I'm curious. I need numbers from everybody. Yeah, it's hard. Like, what considers a regular versus, right, if you go to a brewery for one time a year or one time every 6 months, like, are you able to get that feeling from them? It's kind of hard to say. Yeah, like I'm terrible about this because I try to go everywhere, and I joke that I frequently go to everywhere, but I'm not really a regular at any one of those places because I don't go there as often because I'm going somewhere else. And so there are places though that, like, be it maybe there's a certain day of the week that I typically would go somewhere. It starts to feel like part of the routine, and it starts to feel like part of when you're in a certain part of town, you always stop here for a beer maybe. Like, and you start to feel somewhat like a regular, even if you're not. Yeah, maybe one way to kind of gauge that is if you go to places like how many times does somebody walk in and the bartender just already knows their name?
Yeah.
Like before they run a tab or anything, just walk in the door, say hi, use their name, and maybe even just start pouring their beer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the best way to kind of gauge it.
Yeah, and that's also part of the culture of a brewery, though, too. Hopefully, that
Yeah.
you try to do that as much as possible, even if you don't know the person's name or what they drink. It's like, hey, welcome back. You could recognize that this is a person that's been in here before, and
Yeah.
you don't get that at Applebee's. Well, maybe there's regulars at Applebee's.
I'm sure
I don't
there
know.
are. I'm sure there are.
What about future? So I don't think that when Gilligan's first opened up that a lot of people were expecting a second West Side tap room at that time. Is this something we should plan for in the future? That this is an idea that you're gonna have other tap rooms that are gonna pop up around town or somewhere else? Or
I mean, never say never.
Right.
We're always looking for the right opportunity and kind of going from there. We know our product stands up to anybody. It's just about finding the right opportunity. This Gilligan's Brewery in Wyoming just made perfect sense because it's such a similar community in terms of, like the Village Green, the Dora District, small businesses around there that, we felt like we could do this again. But yeah, never say never.
What are some of the similarities of kind of the neighborhood and the area to Westwood, or differences that you guys have seen?
Yeah, like the Dora District, the Village Green. So Westwood, you have the Town Hall Park where, a stage will get put up throughout the year for live music. There's events like the market and Second Saturday, stuff like that, all throughout the year. And then that's also happening in Wyoming with like May Fete, 4th of July, stuff like that. And they just did a huge renovation in the past 1 year. I don't exactly know when the time frame was, but of Village Green Park with the amphitheater for live music and stuff like that. So there's a lot of similarities in that, as well as what's immediately around the tap room. In Wyoming, you got a lot of small businesses like plant shops, bakeries, other restaurants like Gabby's and stuff like that Westwood also has. So those are some pretty big similarities.
I never really thought about it, how similar they were, until you guys opened up here, and then I started kind of looking at it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it was just kind of weird. It's a little bit more condensed than Westwood.
Right.
There's not as much, walking between, like say Westwood from Ivory House to Frond or something like that. But it's very similar, which is fun.
You also situated right here. It's kind of where a lot of different communities kind of come right up next to each other. You get very different kind of cultures all around each other, and it makes for a really interesting mix of people sometimes.
Definitely, and we're looking excited. We're really excited for stuff like St. Patrick's Day and all the other stuff that really is going to bring everybody out, because this is the perfect spot for, we got Lachlan, Hartwell, Wyoming. There's so many different areas literally right here.
Right. Well, and you mentioned Gabby's, another brewery right down the street.
Yeah.
Bocce Brewing Company is right there. Very different kind of vibe than what you guys have here, and it just complements so well having the two kind of in the same little strip here.
I mean, we've heard a lot of people is that competition? And to me, it's not, because if you are a brewery fan, you want to go to different breweries and you want to experience different things. That with having two places so close together, that makes it easier for you to try both, whether it be on the same day or something like that.
Well, and, if it's done right, every brewery should have its own personality.
Yes.
I think sometimes it's not always done right, but, then the one that happened naturally will always win out, in my opinion. But, if you open a brewery and you let it become what it is to its, the core, the soul of the place, there's nobody can compete with that. Yeah. They can all complement each other at that point. But
definitely.
Ask me again in 10 years when there's twice as many breweries. If there's competition, I might have a different answer. But right now, it doesn't feel like it to me. Now, that's obviously from the outside looking in. As long as you can stick to kind of who you are, there's no reason why there should ever be competition.
Well, one of the a lot of people think that this is a bad question, but asking a bartender what other breweries they should try. The amount of times people started that question with, I probably shouldn't ask this. I'm like, no, you're asking the right people. Because we also go to other breweries. We want to try other beers, other styles, experience the tap room from an outside as well. So every bartender in a brewery has probably like 3 or 4 ready to go when somebody asks, what other brewery should I hit?
Right.
And it's location based too.
Well, then, like, if you've got a good bartender that is paying attention to what somebody's drinking and what they like, and they can direct them to a place that kind of caters to that, maybe. I mean, there are things that you guys just don't make a lot of. If somebody's sitting down and they're like, man, I just love sour beer. West Side, they'll have something that you like to drink. But it's not their thing. But, there's, places in town they will make you very happy.
Yeah.
So like if you can find that and send people to those spots, they're going to reciprocate too, and they're going to be sending people.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at Urban Artifact, you're like, man, this is great, but I just want a double IPA.
Yeah.
Well, guess where they're going to send you?
Definitely.
What about that? So let's talk about the beer. You mentioned that there is a mix of West Side and Gilligan's beers here. How does that mix break down? How does it break down right now? Is that how it's always going to break down? How many of one versus another?
Overall, like the number will kind of fluctuate based on what we have available.
Right.
But we want to have as many Gilligan's Brewery beers on tap as we possibly can. So right now, I believe we have 12, maybe 13 out of the 30 taps. So, and that includes nitro. So that's already a pretty good selection. Right. But we also want to have stuff for, the non-beer drinkers. So West Cider, you can't, I'm sure you could maybe, I don't know, make a Irish cider. But since we haven't, let's use the ciders that we have available. Right. So that's available. You mentioned double IPAs. Like, if somebody really just wants to have some great food out here and drink an IPA, we still have that.
Right.
So the number will kind of fluctuate, but we would love to have as many on out here for Gilligan's Brewery.
Right. And the personalities, like you mentioned, of the two different sides, when you see the Gilligan's handles, they're going to be Irish styles, English styles, something traditional. No, it's going to be traditional on both sides. Something that's kind of traditional English styles, we'll say, or European styles, maybe, versus the West Side is going to be a little more modern kind of craft beer styles that you're used to.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the West Side beers that are going to be here is going to be more like an American style just because of the time of year. The Irish styles are the Gilligan's beers. And now, come September, August, you'll start seeing some of the Bavarian beers from West Side, just because it's still what people want to drink.
Right.
And there's a lot of similarities in, an Irish versus a German beer, but that time of year you want that specific thing.
Right. What about events here? Are you guys going to do live music here in the brewery versus, letting it just kind of be out at the park there? Or what kind of things are you looking to do?
So we're looking into how we can effectively do live music inside the tap room. Mm-hmm. But we also want to take advantage of that amphitheater that's literally right outside.
Right.
So the Dora District is huge for that. But we're also looking at, the live music in here, trying to do different events throughout the year inside the tap room. Some smaller stuff like trivias and calligraphy classes. We'd love to get that out going as well. But other events we would love to do. We're just still figuring out all the ins and outs of the operation itself, and then doing all that.
It's a lot to take over. You guys in the Westwood Tap Room, you have Catch a Fire left, or is there, and you have them running their own food program.
Yeah.
This brings it in-house to you guys.
Yeah, which is very new for us.
A very new experience.
Yes. which has honestly been fun. We were very lucky that Emmy, the GM, was able to stay on, and she has, great restaurant experience. David, the head chef, he stayed on, and, both of them at the end of like kind of Gilligan's on the Green, they wanted it to feel more like a tap room.
Right.
So when they were telling us this, we're like, sounds like you guys are the right people that we need. So having those two stay on has really helped us out as people who have not really run a kitchen before. So they've been great with that.
What are some of the things that have kind of surprised you guys, maybe caught you off guard with kind of taking this over and that maybe you didn't anticipate?
So far, I think it's just trying to figure out what's going to make Gilligan's Brewery, Wyoming's brewery.
Right.
So that's been, I don't want to say a lot, but, it's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And then, just with the kitchen of, how do we staff a kitchen? How do we, do inventory and food ordering, stuff like that.
Staffing a kitchen is very different than staffing a brewery.
Yes, yes, it is. So, having the experience of Emmy and David has been, huge.
Right. Let's kind of go a different road. Let's talk about you specifically. How did you get into craft beer? What's your road to craft?
I started, I think, as a lot of people is just going to breweries with friends and trying different things. Going to a place and kind of asking, hey, I typically like this style of an IPA because I've had a good one at this place. Like, what do you guys have to offer? And then just kind of enjoyed it and just kept trying new things. Every time I go to a place, I want to try like their signature stuff. Like what makes, I don't know, Wiedemann's, their core stuff, and finding what I like and what I don't like and appreciating the style for what it is. And then just kind of, I worked at Nation, which is a restaurant right across the street from Westside Brewing. Mm-hmm. Me and coworkers would go to Westside and ended up getting a job there and just kind of kept growing with it because it's a fun industry to work in.
Well, and Nation is a great place that does kind of have a craft beer personality too.
There's quite a few taps.
Whereas there are some places that still just don't get it.
Yeah.
You talk about there are styles that you like. Are there things that like you used to hate that you now, especially being in a brewery, you try things a little more frequently that you wouldn't otherwise?
Yeah,
that you're like, I do kind of like this.
To be honest, it's ciders. Like I started
I'm
off
kind of there too.
I started off like, I know, don't give me a cider essentially,
right.
And then trying different ones, and be like, oh, this one actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
And this one's pretty good too.
I find myself, and I don't know exactly what the situation is, but there's certain situations where I find myself drinking a cider that I'm like, this is perfect for this, be it weather or something like that. And I have not nailed down exactly when all of those times are, but every once in a while I'll have one. I'm like, oh, this is perfect right now. This is it. I need to remember this. And I'm kind of the same way, just kind of slowly getting into ciders. I also think for a very long time, there were a lot of ciders that were just really, really, really sweet, which is not what I want.
Yeah,
I like
that's how I
was.
Like, it was just way too sweet. Like, there was no flavor in it. It was just straight sweetness.
Right.
So actually being able to enjoy like the peach of the peach cider and stuff, the strawberry and the strawberry cider.
Right.
It's like, oh, I can actually enjoy this because it's not just overly sweet.
What about the flip side? Are there things that like you used to love that you find yourself now just like, man, I'm just kind of sick of that?
Maybe to an extent some IPAs, just because a lot of them have the same hops in it. And
right.
I don't know if it's like, it's not that I don't like it. It's just a little over redundant. Like I want to expand and enjoy something different for a while. I always like to try and enjoy as much as I possibly can in terms of the variety of styles out there.
I do find myself like kind of getting bored with IPAs sometimes, which I don't understand because I can drink the same kind of dry Irish stout. I can drink it over and over and over and never get bored of it. But IPAs, for some reason, I do. I don't know if maybe like I don't taste the same depth of flavors in an IPA. Like it's just so much hop. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that before, but I do get bored of some beer styles if I start drinking them more often than others, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's. I think it's just you just. I don't want to say tired of it maybe, or maybe just you feel like you're neglecting other styles and styles that you like, and they're good beers.
Right.
That could also play into it.
What about what is your favorite beer and food pairing? What is the perfect food to eat while you're drinking?
Ooh, you can never go wrong with like a burger or wings.
Right.
One of the things out here that has been really popular is the spice bag.
So good. It is so good.
Yeah, when made a batch of it early just to kind of feel it out, try it, and we gave it to a bunch of staff, and it was insane. Like everybody was like, I want this now.
I saw you guys post about it, and I'm like, I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of Spice Bag, and then I kind of started doing some research into it. I'm like, oh, it's like a big thing.
Yeah.
And so I gotta try it. So I came out here and got some and fell in love with it. And then like the next day, heard somebody talking about Spice Bag and like, you can't find them around here. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
So then I was on Reddit a couple days later, and I saw somebody asking the question, like, can you go anywhere and get Spice Bags? Like, yes.
Yeah, it's funny because, like you said, nobody really has that in the area, and it made perfect sense to bring that on out here. And people are a little confused at first by it.
Sure.
Of like, it's a bag of chicken and peppers and spice and all that. It's like, yeah, but try it.
Yeah.
Just try it. Like, you can't go wrong with that.
How much of this here do you want this to feel like an Irish pub versus just, I guess just a pub is like how much of the personality do you think is Irish versus just a neighborhood pub?
Yeah, I think it's gonna have,
because the Spice Bag is a very Irish thing.
It's gonna have an Irish core to it, but we got to listen to the community and got to have that Irish aspect of the food and all that. But maybe kid isn't going to want to eat a Spice Bag.
Right.
Like, what can we have to offer that's not going to be, you're finding a pub in Ireland, but you can enjoy here. So some of the stuff like, the chicken and all that, like chicken tenders,
right.
Burger to an extent, but more or less just like a kid's burger. We still want to have that for people because, I want everybody to not only come in here and find something that they like to drink, but also something that they like to eat.
Right. You want people to kind of, when they're thinking of a place to go grab food, for this to come up in the conversation the same way it does with the beer. What makes for you, what this is very opinion based, but what makes an Irish pub or a pub? Like, what is that definition for you?
I think it starts with the beer. You got to have that. If you want to be known as an Irish destination, you got to have Irish beer.
Right.
That's going to be kind of the start of it, but it also is just the environment of making it a fun place, whether you're just there to hang out with friends and family or to catch a game, something like that. Like, it all starts with the environment itself of let's do this right.
Right.
Some of it's also, the closeness that you have. Irish pubs are small. This is a pretty big building,
right? But
we want it to be full, and that's going to kind of give it the Irish feel.
Well, there's like a warmth, I think, is the way I think of it. Like, it's not necessarily small physically, but it feels kind of that cozy kind of warmth of a space.
Welcoming, yeah.
Which a lot of places kind of fail on for me. You walk in and you're like, oh, this is not an Irish pub. This is like this feels like a Denny's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places like that, and I love kind of that pub atmosphere, and I think I lean towards just calling it a pub versus an Irish pub because we're not in Ireland, and so it's not an Irish pub, but it's a pub.
A pub.
And also, like, there is, I understand the whole Gilligan's brand, but there is a lot of English influences to the beer and to what this is too.
I mean, we've done Scottish, Welsh, English. We have a British Strong in the tanks right now. I mean, throughout history, there's been so much back and forth between like what's considered what country and what country's in another country. So even though what we know of, the certain countries today, they were all kind of the same thing at one point.
Right. There's a bunch of Irish people yelling at you right now through their.
Well, we won't get into the Ireland specifically part, but that area in Europe so small that. You don't have the opportunity to have very, distinct and, well, you do for sure. But like when it comes to the beer,
there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
I think people don't always understand that here because the United States is so big geographically that Europe is not very big.
Yeah, you can drive for an hour and you go through 3 different countries.
Yeah, you can literally get in your car for a little bit and get out of your car, and people are speaking a different language.
And then, United States.
No, it feels that way in the United States too.
Specifically, like if I go north and from Cincinnati, I can drive for 5 hours and still be in Ohio.
Listen, if you start here at Gilligan's and you drive over to Westwood, it feels like you've crossed into a different country sometimes.
Well, Cincinnati specifically, yeah.
Once you cross over to the west side,
them highways are our borders.
Yeah. Where do you see kind of the bar culture of Cincinnati going? Because for a long time, like it was easy to open a tap room. Like you throw some picnic tables in a warehouse and get the stool that everybody hates. And boom, you've got a tap room, and people were happy with it. It's different now, and I think that we're starting to see that bleed over into kind of just bars in general. Any place people go to drink, they're looking for something else now. And where do you see that kind of culture going?
Yeah, I feel like some of it is not even beer focused.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to a certain place just for a certain style or a certain name of beer. They're going for the atmosphere that comes along with it. And yeah, if you have good beer, doesn't mean people are necessarily going to come. They might come, but not stay or come back. It's all about just making them feel at home.
Right.
Making them feel welcome and appreciated, and, are proud to say, like, hey, I go here, I wear their shirts, I wear their hats, stuff like that. That's kind of a big connection piece that I feel like is really starting to grow within, the bar, taproom industry.
It's really interesting that, like, my kids, who obviously are not drinkers because they're children, there are breweries that they love. We like going here. Maybe it's the food sometimes, but mostly it's not. It's some other kind of experience that they're getting out of it too. And I think, like, once not to make the whole kids and breweries, dogs and breweries argument, but like once you figure out that you can create something that people can attach themselves to and resonate with, that is bigger than just something in a glass. Once you figure that out and really kind of understand what that is, like, it just opens this door to, like, success as a business. I think that there's a lot more potential than just how much beer you can sell over your bar. Yeah. And once you figure that out, it opens the door for people, and I wish more places could figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, we want people to come up here, and whether it's for family dinner on a Thursday night, these kids are still able to come. They're able to enjoy the atmosphere, play the board games that we have. Like, they have something to do that's not staring at an iPad, which kids seem to like sometimes. I mean, yeah, you have the iPads, but it's also fun just to play a board game with your siblings or friends while the adults have a couple beers. Makes the kids want to go there, makes the adults want to go more because they are able to have that family connection with their kids.
And, on the topic of kids in breweries, the way that this place is set up, there are 2 very distinct sides to it. If you want to go sit at a bar and have a beer and not have somebody's kid sitting next to you watching Bluey on their iPad, you can go sit at the bar, and there's probably not going to be any kids in there. Yeah, because there aren't any tables.
Yeah, our bar side's 21 plus, and we kind of did that for a couple of reasons. It's one, like you said, you don't want to sit next to a random kid sometimes listening to Bluey on full blast on an iPad.
No dig against Bluey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. But it's also sometimes where, like, say you and your wife have a date night, then you don't have your kids, you don't have to deal with your kids. And now you can just actually enjoy, yourselves and the environment without, worrying about getting up out of a stool and knocking over a kid. Right. But, it says 21 plus. If you're in line with your mom or dad to get a Coke or something like that, like, yeah, we're not going to absolutely banish you.
Just pretend you're a grown up.
Yeah, just stay with your adult and go about it that way. So we're trying to make sure that there's space within this building for whoever's up here, whether it's date night, whether it's a family dinner. You can honestly enjoy your time.
I wish more places would figure out ways to do that within their location. Like, it can be a spot for everybody, and provide kind of different experiences in different ways. Like, it doesn't have to, if you're kid friendly, it doesn't mean the whole building has to be kid friendly.
And the way our building's set up is it makes it so easy where, a place like, I don't know, Ryan Geist in that huge warehouse style tap room can't really. You could, but it's not going to be as natural.
I would think it would be harder for a place like Madry with because theirs is just kind of one open space, whereas Ryan Geist, the way that place is laid out, there are these little nooks and crannies and stuff. Like, you could create some kind of experience within there that maybe doesn't have a bunch of kids. No kids on the rooftop or something. I don't know. I do like sitting at the rooftop at Ryan Geist to get a drink just because there's bar stools.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in the tap room, there's no bar stools. I'm a bar guy. I like sitting in a bar. Ryan
It's
Geist,
the best place to
give me
have
some
a
bar
beer.
stools.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite places to go get a beer that are not West Side or Gilligan's?
So I really like Third Eye Brewing. I think they have some great things. Let's see. Well, I do enjoy going to Matry with friends. I got a lot of friends over in that area. So and then even though I work at a brewery, I still love a good dive bar.
Me too. What's your favorite dive bar?
So I go to Rudy's a lot in Cheviot.
Okay.
We have I always joke that is the service industry bar because I know everybody in there who works at other restaurants or bars in the area. But I mean, that's just your great dive bar. It's fun. You walk in, people know who you are.
Right.
You can have a conversation with anybody in there. So that's what makes it fun.
Right.
And darts.
Yeah. It's darts versus pool as the perfect bar game. I think I lean towards pool versus darts, but I think maybe not.
I think it depends on the day and who I'm with.
Because at home, it's definitely darts. But I think that's just because I don't have a pool table. If I had a pool table, maybe it would be pool. I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that you could tell people that you think they don't know about Gilligan's, what would that be?
I think that's just Gilligan's Brewery's here. With a fast transition that we had, a lot of people still think it's Gilligan's on the Green. Mm-hmm. The exterior sign still says Gilligan's on the Green because the new sign hasn't shown up yet. So I think it's just Gilligan's Brewery is here. We're getting cans out in the market more and more each day. And, the beer is not changing, but we're just kind of putting a more emphasis on the tap or the beer aspect of a tap room.
I was surprised when kind of the news hit that you guys were taking over, how few people kind of understood that you guys were already here with beer. That were like, oh, I didn't know about, or I never heard about that, or I didn't know they were serving beer there.
It's
and
who's West Side Brewing? There's only 15 taps of West Side Brewing handles.
Somebody asked me the other day. We were talking about new breweries, and there's what's that other brewery? There's some local breweries taking over a bar or something like that. And I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah,
it's not really what's happening, but I'm interested that that's what you got out of the story. It's still surprising to me how. I guess in my head, I expect everybody to know everything about beer, but when they don't.
And it's not just a tap room. We are brewing beer on site too.
Right.
So you'll have beers that you may not see anywhere else because it's just out here and it's going to go through fast. So we're brewing on site, and you're going to be able to walk in here and get that classic brewery smell when we're brewing. Yeah. Screams beer.
Yeah. Yeah. For good or bad, I recognize it there. I love the smell. I think it's one of my favorite. I want a candle that I can just light in my house of brewing.
That could be a fun side project for you.
I know, it probably isn't that hard to do. It's just wort candle.
Yep.
I was going to ask you something else and I forgot what it was. It was kind of on that same thing. How many people do you think live within walking distance of either one of the tap rooms and still have no idea that it's there?
So it's probably a decent amount in Wyoming as we're still getting established.
Right.
But it always does surprise me at West Side of somebody coming in, whether it's on their own or for a party, they say, I live 5 minutes from you guys and I've never heard of you or stopped in, or maybe, I've heard of you, I just haven't been here. It's it is a little surprising sometimes, but also not, because not everybody, wants to go to a brewery.
What?
I mean, crazy, right? But they might not really go out a whole lot, or, they're focusing on dive bars
Right.
and other experiences, stuff like that. So Wyoming probably a lot more than Westwood, but there's still going to be those people.
When people talk about kind of the state of craft beer and the industry right now, and the potential or lack of for it to grow, that's the stuff that like gets stuck in my head that I can't get out. That it's like, well, you walk into any neighborhood and how many people would love the tap room that's just right down the street that still just don't know that it's there, or just haven't walked in or haven't tried it, or how many people are still drinking, whatever macro beer that would love, to come in and get something that is well crafted and has flavor to it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's still so many people that fit
Yeah,
into
with
that.
as many breweries in Cincinnati, it's kind of surprising to an extent.
And how many experiences still haven't been tackled by a local craft brewery?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about dive bars. There still is not like a brewery that kind of feels like a dive bar. Like, I would love that.
Yeah,
if
that
you
would
had
be-
a
that would be
dive
a
bar
lot
that
of
just
fun.
happened to make their own beer, like,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah. That would
there's
be something.
Lots of things like that. That I'm like, man, like, a brewery that really does cater to like a pool hall kind of vibe. Like, that would be fun.
Yeah,
That also
absolutely.
makes beer. Like, there's just so many of those experiences that haven't been done yet or tried yet, that it's like, man, like we haven't even scratched the surface of the potential of
Definitely.
what craft beer, especially here in Cincinnati. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
sitting down with me. For anybody that is still with us in this episode, thank you very much. People like you are the reason that it keeps going, and your support makes the show happen. So if you really like any of this stuff, the best way to help is either share it with a friend that you think would like the episode or the brewery or just beer in general. Share it with them. If you feel very generous, you can go to thegnarlygnome.com/support and support that way. You can sign up on there for free now. I added a free tier, so you get extra stuff that everybody else doesn't get because I like you more. And if you support one of the higher tiers where you pay money, I like you even more. So and so does my wife. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. We'll be back next week. Not sure what the episode is because I don't know if I've got it scheduled yet because I don't have my calendar in front of me. I have no idea. But we'll be back and it'll be good, and we'll have a beer together. Cheers.
Cheers.
And cheers to everybody.